Hello and welcome to episode 7 of Coach's Corner. My name is Sam Eames and today I sit down with Jade Longden. We talk about the hidden cost of burnout, the identity she forms through survival, how training in your 20s needs to look different compared to your 30s, and why real growth can often feel like betrayal. If you've ever felt like you've outgrown the version of yourself that once got you here, this conversation is definitely for you. I can almost guarantee if you're a woman listening to this, you'll see some part of yourself in Jade's story. So let's jump into it. Hello and welcome to this episode of Coach's Corner. This podcast is where we talk all things deep into the world of health, fitness, business and mindset with people excelling in their game. My name is Sam Eames and this is episode 7. My guest today is a high-level coach and leader who is redefining what progress, power and identity truly means for women, especially in the world of fitness. She helps women break through invisible ceilings they didn't know they built, helps unconscious survival patterns and the constant pressure to prove themselves. Her work goes beyond just sets, reps or morning routines. It's about identity, transformation, nervous system awareness and learning to lead yourself with a place of self-respect and not betrayal. Jade Longden. Good morning, Jade.
Hi, how you going?
Was there anything else you wanted to add to that intro?
No, I think you cover that better than I can cover it.
Did a little bit of research.
Yeah, perfect.
Cool. So let's just get to know your backstory a little bit more.
Yeah, sure.
So starting
What
off
do you want
with,
to know? It's very, very diverse, I think.
so how old were you when you first walked into a gym?
I was 14.
Okay.
Yeah, so I feel like growing up, I was in a single parent household, so I didn't really get to do the traditional sports growing up as like a younger child, and I always craved some kind of physical outlet. And it wasn't until we moved over to Bribie Island that I was within walking distance to a gym and I was able to get there by myself. And I think it was like $5 for a casual visit at the time. And I was like, I can scrape together $5 with my part-time job. And that was what I used my money to do. I would run there. I think it was like a 2K run from my house. So I would walk or I'd run there after school and I would go in and I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I think I would spend most of my time doing sit-ups and maybe just pick up like a couple of light weights and move around. But there was a lot of boys from my school who went there too. So I would kind of just like watch what they were doing and just fiddle around with things myself. Mm-hmm. I had no plan. I just knew that it was something that made me feel good about myself because I'd experienced a lot of body image issues growing up. And I figured if I wasn't going to do anything about it, those things would just continue to plague me. So that was kind of where it all started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. So that's what made you join. Was it a sense of trying to escape from something else?
I think maybe to a degree, yeah. Like I feel like my story is probably no different to anyone else's. You get bullied at school for things that you literally can't control about like the way you look or like what your body parts look like, or especially for a girl, like that constant pressure to look a certain way and have like boys commenting on like your body when you're just getting used to what your body is and how it like functions and what it's supposed to do. And I think when I went in there, I'd already spent many years listening to my mum talk about how fat she was or how she hated the way that she looked. And I had adopted that dialogue before I even realized that that's what it was. Mm. And when I walked into the gym, I walked in there to change the way that I looked. And without understanding, I was also looking to change the way I felt about myself.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember what your first training program looked like?
It was probably like a 20-minute run / sprint on the treadmill. And then I actually can picture it in my mind now. It was like the gym's still there. It's Average Joel's gym over on Bribie.
Never heard of
it. And there was 2 levels and I would walk upstairs and they had one of those old school ab curl thingies.
Okay, yeah.
And so I would do those. I think I would do like something stupid like 500 sit-ups.
Wow.
And I would do that after my run. And then I started venturing in and doing a little bit of like shoulder press with dumbbells. And then once I realized that squats weren't just for boys, I would start doing squats on a Smith machine. And that was really like it. And I would just do like those things. And then as I started getting a little bit more comfortable, I would join in with the boys sometimes with what they were doing and learn from them, because a lot of them were in like footy excellence programs, so they would have like some kind of idea more than what I did. And yeah, and then I started going to the school gym with my PE teacher sometimes and just doing pull-ups or,
Starting to branch out a bit.
yeah. And I remember walking home, my stepdad was a martial artist, so he always had like bits of training gear lying around. And I was like, I want to be able to do 10 pull-ups. And he was like, okay. And I was like, do we have a pull-up bar? He was like, no, but I'll make you one. And we had this copper pipe and it was hooked into like 2 hooks on our back pergola. I remember walking out there and jumping up and trying to do one, and I was like, wow, that's hard. And I could do half a one. And then every day I would walk out and I would do my half a one until I could do a full one. And then the next day I would do my full one and then like a quarter of one and then another half one. And I did that every single day.
And how long did it take to hit your 10?
Not as long as I thought.
Okay.
I think I got to 10 maybe within like 2 months.
Yep.
But it was just consistent repetition of something that was hard, and it became easier the more I did it.
And you're still in school at this point?
Yeah, I was still in school. I reckon I would have been 15 at that point.
Showing up some of the boys?
Yeah, maybe not at that point, but yeah.
So what did you believe about fitness or your body back then compared to now?
I definitely believed about fitness. I knew that I wanted to be good at something because I'd always felt average my whole life. And I was always like that kid that came second or third at everything. Good, but not great. And I had this like deep desire to be great at something. And I didn't really understand what that meant back then, other than like, if I was really great at something, maybe people would see me in the way that I suppose I hadn't felt seen before. And I would always get the pat on the back, like, yeah, you're doing really great, but never like, holy crap, look at like how good she is at something. And I didn't really like, it wasn't the validation of like, I wanted people to celebrate that, but it was the validation I think that I was lacking for myself, that I was looking for through being good at sport. And I think also along the process of that, again, my belief about my body was that it was something that I was judged by. So if I wasn't maintaining it, or I wasn't getting better with it, or it wasn't looking a certain way, then my worth diminished alongside of that, which I think is the toxic cycle we all kind of go through to some degree. And I don't know what it's like, obviously, to grow up as a teenage boy, but I think nowadays it's pretty easy to see that there's definitely those images around like what you're supposed to look like and body image. And back then when I was growing up, it was skinny. Like, you got to be skinny. And I am naturally like athletically built. So I was not skinny, not in the way that I looked around at girls. But then again, I think that I probably had some form of body dysmorphia probably from the age of like 10. I remember looking at my legs on the bus sometimes and being like, if I just chopped off this part here, they would look better. Yep. This is like at 8. Like, I was in primary school having those thoughts. So
yeah, well, I guess from I don't want to speak on behalf of every teenage boy, but I think whether you kind of teenage boy or girl growing up, I think the body dysmorphia side of things is definitely like a normal thing. So.
Yeah, 100%. And it's like, I also work with kids in a high school setting now. So it's like, I look at those kids and I'm like, I can't believe that that's the kind of stuff that we were dealing with at such a young age. And looking at now with social media, how it, like, back then it was bad enough, but now it's everywhere. You're seeing.
Do you think it's worse now?
Oh, absolutely. Okay. Like, I mean, AI, obviously you have no idea what's real and what's not anymore. Like, it's that. It's
only getting worse.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like you see these, and I've competed in bodybuilding and I love it for what it made me into, but the pressure to maintain a certain look, and most people, the things that they're posting, that's not them all the time. But no one has that relevant understanding, especially a teenage kid. All they see is this girl who's got this mad booty and like ripped abs and everything. And they think that that's a sustainable level to strive for every single day.
Yeah.
That's, I think, debilitating.
Yeah, no, it definitely can be. But then from, I guess, like, it's a little bit different now, I think, compared to back then in regards to you would jump on, say, social media now, And you'd be like, right, that person's really fit, or that person must look like that all year round. But then also, I think you can also be exposed to the side of things where you do find those people that aren't like that all year round. Whereas back in the early 2000s or whatever, it was all through magazines, or it was through TV, or a little bit of internet here and there. So I think just as toxic as it can be now, I think it's starting to balance itself out, because I think people are starting to become more educated with social media, to the point where they are starting to learn that people aren't going to be like that all year round.
Yes.
Doesn't matter what age you are.
Yes, absolutely. I feel like we've definitely taken a turn, and I personally, I think, have seen a very big turn in that, because we're coming into, I think, this age of authenticity with social media, where people are really sick of seeing just highlight reels, especially when it comes to fitness and bodies, because I suppose over the years, my belief about bodies and fitness, it's changed and evolved to be more around, like, we work in seasons. Sometimes your season is your body is like your main project and your main goal, and everything you do is to make sure it's in like elite functioning precision. And then other times life takes over. You've got kids, you've got your jobs weighing down on you, you've just life is lifing, and whilst you're still maintaining like a level that's healthy and you're fit and you're functional, but it doesn't mean that you're tracking perfect macros. It doesn't mean that you're hitting PBs every 2 weeks, or that you're getting to the gym 6 times a week either.
I think, because obviously I'm from a sports background as well, so we always had like our main season and our off season, and then obviously pre-season. So I think to a certain extent, like people that have that sort of routine, especially early on, and then obviously into like their mid-20s or whatever sport you're doing at whatever age, I think it must be like a very beneficial routine or mindset to get into.
Yes.
Yeah,
I think so too. And it's that having that base understanding of, it's like, my peak performance needs to happen here, and you have an understanding of what you need to do to prep your body to be in that peak performance. And being exposed to that background early on, you also understand the importance of recovery. Whereas most people, when they start getting into fitness, they're like, I'm going to go ham sandwich and I'm going to train 7 days a week. And like that hashtag no days off, team no days off. And it's like, that's all well and good until you start getting an injury, and then you like don't rest it at all, and you're sacrificing sleep, and your body's just not playing ball, and you keep injury on top of injury and injury. And like, I've fallen victim to that many, many, many times.
Yep, definitely. Same. Was there a moment where training became more than just physical for you?
Oh, absolutely. I definitely think I would associate myself with someone who has like, or has had quite a low level of like self-worth. And I feel like once I got into this process of working out, and it became part of just my routine, it wasn't something that I had to like think or like force myself to go do. Like, it just became like brushing my teeth. It's just something that I did. I noticed a change in the way that I viewed myself. So by committing a small portion of the day to becoming better physically, it had a ripple effect into
mental side,
my mental strength, my resilience. And I started CrossFit, and like, I mean, I'd done gym forever, but there was still this point where I was scared of failing. So I wouldn't try too hard just in case I failed, because at least I had this mental voice in my head that was like, but it's okay, you chose not to do that. That was your choice, not that it was a reflection of like, oh, you're actually bad. Whereas when I started doing CrossFit in my very early 20s, there's like nowhere you can hide in a class like that. And it was very confronting for me mentally, but I also found that I thrived in that environment. And I was like, oh, I'm actually capable of so much more than I thought. And all of a sudden, I would go in looking for the grossest word that I could find that would make me suffer the most. And within like a couple of months of like approaching that, like choosing discomfort to place myself in the most uncomfortable situation that I could possibly find, the growth in my character and my personality was like unimaginable. My grades got better at uni. I felt more confident in my job. And it was literally all because I was choosing discomfort. I was choosing to be uncomfortable to make myself better in every other aspect of life.
So do you find the harder you train, the easier, I guess, life in general gets?
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
Life is hard if you are unprepared for hard situations.
Yep.
Like, there is no doubt about that.
Yeah. And it's always better to be over-prepared than under-prepared.
Absolutely. I love this expression. It's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
In a war, yeah. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. I go off fail to prepare or prepare to fail.
Absolutely.
So now you train out at Chaos Martial Arts Gym in Murrayfield.
Yeah.
How different is that training compared to when you first started?
Very different, because when I started doing martial arts, I did martial arts as a kid, and then I stopped doing it, and it was always something I wanted to come back to, and then I just never really did. And the training for getting into the ring is like, it's all on you. Like, when you get in, like, not that everyone goes there to get in the ring and fight. Like, that's obviously a very different style of like why you train, but
That's obviously one environment where there is nowhere to hide.
no, that's right. Like, everyone sees what work you did and didn't do, but it's also the same as bodybuilding, right? Like, my very first experience of like competitive sport was bodybuilding, and
How old were you for that?
I was 26.
So you went from CrossFit to bodybuilding?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I was 26 when I did bodybuilding. And yeah, same thing. You get on stage, everyone sees the work you did do and the work that you did not do.
Yeah.
Like, it's very, very obvious. And same as when you're in the ring, there is a winner and there's a loser. I mean, some people just, you're on for the night and you're off for the night. But, you know the difference of when you get in there. If you lose because the other person is just better, you can, that's okay. You can get past that. But if you get in there and know that you haven't put in the work, those are the losses that'll haunt you.
Yep.
So I feel like the training, it's very mental when you're doing the training, because some nights it's about fitness, other nights it's about technique, but like, it's almost like putting a spotlight on all the areas that you are happy to shortcut when you're not really like realizing it. Like, here in a normal gym, you can just lower the weight if you're not feeling it.
And no one's going to judge you.
No one's going to judge you, because no one knows.
They probably respect you better, to be honest.
Yeah.
If they do see it,
But no one knows. And in an environment like that, you've got to be very honest with yourself about what you're wanting to get out, because you'll get out of it what you put into it. You can go in and have the hardest, most craziest session you want, and you'll get results out of that. Or you can go in and cruise, but really the onus is on you. So yeah, I feel like that's the biggest difference.
Definitely.
And also presence. I don't know about anyone else, but when I walk into the gym and I'm just lifting for reps, I still can think about other stuff. So, I'll still think about my day or whatever's going on in life. Whereas when I'm doing
when you're sparring, you
when
have to be in.
Yeah.
Locked in.
Or even just when I'm hitting the pads, it's like I don't really have time to think about anything else, because all of my focus is on exactly what I'm doing. And that was the biggest experience I found with it. I was going through a pretty challenging time when I first started, and I walked in there, and after I walked out, I was like, that was the most peaceful my head has felt for the last 12 months.
So you get a better outlet from that side of training?
Yep. Absolutely. And it's good frustration, going and hitting something when you've had a bad day.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Good stress reliever. So how's your training evolved over the years, especially now that you're in your 30s?
It's a good question. It's had to change just because obviously I have less time now. I can't be selfish. I have 2 children and they go to school and they need their mum, but also, and I thought that meant when the kids were younger, I felt like it was an inconvenience, and that sounds terrible to say out loud, but I meant it like in a way of, I struggled to find that balance going from someone who was able to train whenever they wanted to now having to work around schedules and all that kind of stuff. But it actually taught me to be a lot more intentional with my training. And it also allowed me this really beautiful perspective change in that I can still get really great results only training for 45 minutes 4 times a week. And that was what I experienced after having my son, because my kids are 16 months apart. So I was 6 months postpartum. I just started going back to the gym, properly, and I fell pregnant with Eli. And after I had him, I was like, okay, I'm really done feeling like I don't know who I am anymore, because the gym is such a big part of my life, and fitness has always been something that I've just done. So I didn't have a lot of time. He was a baby that got sick a lot, was awake at night a lot, and I didn't get a lot of sleep. But when I was like, right, no, I need to do this, I had maybe 45 minutes 4 times a week, if I was lucky. And I became the fittest and leanest that I had ever been after having children, just from...
Because you have to utilise that spare time that you got.
Yeah,
or
that's
that's
right.
that time that you've put aside for that certain task.
Yeah, that's right. And I was like, I'm a better mum because I do this. It was hard because you still have like mum guilt and all that kind of thing, but you can't pour from an empty cup. And that's for everyone, I think.
Definitely. Was there a moment you realised this wasn't working anymore, physically or emotionally?
In regards to training?
In regards to training.
I actually feel like I had that moment this year, at the start of this year. I've always been the kind of person that I'll just push. I'll push my body
until you can't push anymore.
Till it flatlines. Yeah, like I'll go until I'm like actually like physically incapable. And that has always been my go-to approach with anything, because like as we spoke about before, training has always been like an outlet for me. And that was also, I think, my coping mechanism when life got hard. I would just train more because I would...
Stress reliever.
I wouldn't have to think about it. Like, you know, I was channeling all of my emotions into this, and they weren't really affecting me in other ways. And it was easy to dissociate in that way. And I feel like everyone... you go through life with whatever mechanism that you use to cope. And when I got to that point at the start of this year, I had more injuries than I knew what to do with. I was physically exhausted, and every way that I trained just wasn't feeling good.
Can you say what built up to that or led up to that cycle?
Overtraining.
Okay.
Massive overtraining. I was training 12 hours a week. On top of a full-time job, on top of running a business, on top of kids. And I just was not recovering. And I think if you work out how many hours a week a professional athlete trains, it's probably about that. And that's their full-time job. I wasn't recovering at all. And I was sleeping maybe 4 hours a night, if I was lucky. And I'd done back-to-back fight camps. So in the space of 2 years, I had 5 fights. Travelled overseas to fight, fought in the World Games, and I was just emotionally and physically spent. And this fight was meant to be a state title, for like a pro state title, and it was like a big deal, and I wanted to do it so badly. But it was like my body was just like, no way, absolutely not. It was like the start of my fight camp, and I was like, I feel as exhausted as I would if I was a week out from fighting. And it was like my heart wanted to so bad. My body was just like, no. Like, and I had to really like reflect on why my body, it felt like my body was working against me. And my whole mentality of like, but this is work. This is exactly how I've trained like this whole time. Why do I feel so different now? And it was like this buildup of injury, lack of recovery, and pushing through when I should have been listening more to my body along the way. So I had to really change some things. I had to slow things down, and that was really uncomfortable. Really uncomfortable to admit that I had to do that.
So what were some of those signs that you were starting to burn out? Just constantly, obviously, fatigue, feeling tired. Was there niggles?
Like back pain. Like chronic back pain, to the point where just standing was hurting. Sitting was hurting. I couldn't kick properly. I'd come to the gym and I'd try to do squats and just normal stuff that I would do. And I was like, I'm in so much pain right now that I just don't want to. And that the don't want to was probably like the biggest sign outside of the pain, because I've had some pretty bad pain before across the years, but it was that mental exhaustion where my brain started going, I don't want to. And I was like, well, that's not me. So it was like a really big...
That's not really an environment again. Once you're not 100%, then it gets like fairly dangerous.
Absolutely, because you become complacent.
Yeah.
And that's where injuries happen.
Cruise control and
Yeah.
Especially going into a fight as well.
Yeah.
So did you go through with that fight or you pulled it?
No, I ended up deciding not to go through with it.
Okay.
And again, the whole like mental battle of like, oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, I've let everyone down. And then just feeling like a failure as like an athlete was like that was my first big shot at something like really, really big. And I was like, did I just give up because it was hard?
So how do you bounce back after that?
I feel like it's been a very big process of unlearning where my worth is tied to. And I feel like a lot of people, I could be making a generalization here, but I think I've worked with enough people now to understand that this is probably true for a lot more people, even if they don't want to admit it. A lot of us, our worth is tied to what we achieve, what we look like, and the validation and praise that we receive from other people. So if you aren't getting any of those things,
It's a very fine line.
how do you determine how worthy you are if you don't intrinsically believe it? So my big journey has been in the last, I think, 8 months has been like, well, if no one's telling me how good I am at something, if no one's commenting on, that I'm doing really well, or if I don't feel like I'm making someone proud of me for what I'm achieving, where's my value? And yeah, it's there's been some pretty dark moments, but also it's been very healing, I suppose, because I've had to be like, all right, well, even though there's no like outward achievement that's occurring in the way that I've always done it, it doesn't mean that my value has diminished in any kind of way.
So is there certain like self-talk points that you tell yourself that helps provide or prove value to yourself?
Yeah, I definitely think it's been because training is one of those things that's really, really great for your body because it induces stress response, which obviously your body responds under pressure and stress, and it grows from that. But when you're in those states for extended periods of time, you experience burnout, whether that be hormonally, mentally, emotionally, physically. And I've had to reduce the nervous system stimulation to the point where I've had to remind my body that actually being able to rest and be calm is safe. Because I've always felt safe in chaotic environments, going full pelt, crazy schedule, all of the things.
It's part of the process.
And that felt normal. That was normal. That's how I've lived my whole life. So having to like slow things down, that like really uncomfortable feeling of like feeling lost, I'd have to always come back to like, okay, why do you feel lost? I feel lost because I don't have a goal right now. Do you not have a goal, or are you just focusing on a different aspect of life? And then talking myself, like I would just mentally coach myself through why those emotions are there. And I'm lucky enough that I have a lot of self-awareness about my feelings and where they come from, and then being able to figure out whether or not this is a story that I need to like let my brain run with, or whether I can just
shut it out
and like let it go. And I think challenging the thoughts too, because it's really easy to believe something that we've always believed, especially when we've gathered enough evidence throughout our life that that's true. And your brain just believes consistency. So if you constantly prove something to it, it's going to believe it.
Whether it's good or bad.
Whether it's good or bad, that's right. It doesn't know the difference between reality and not. Some people really cannot handle criticism in the way that they can use it as feedback. And I used to be one of those people. I would take any kind of criticism as like, you're not good enough. That was what I heard. What the person said and what I heard, two completely different things. Whereas now I feel like I can tell myself, you're not doing well at something, but then also be able to tell myself where I am doing well at things. And that I think has been the hardest part for me, is learning how to like tell myself that I'm doing well, even though I couldn't handle criticism from anyone else. I don't think there's anyone on the planet who talked meaner than I did to myself.
Yep. And do you think a lot of people just don't realise that? So if it is someone's first week or month in the gym and they think all these people are judging them, they think all these people are, talking behind their back about everything that they're doing, and they think they're doing everything wrong, how much of that do you think's reality, and then how much do you think that's just in their head?
Oh, at least 99% of it's in
99.
your head, right?
Yeah,
Like,
definitely.
you are not the main character in anyone else's story but your own.
Yep.
Like, it's crazy to think that we have this feeling of like spotlight effect when we walk into an environment that feels unfamiliar to us, that we think everyone's staring at us. Chances are they're probably thinking about what they've got to do for the day, or they've had an argument with their spouse or their partner, or their kids have been annoying them. Like, no one is looking at you. Not in the way that you think they are.
Yeah, no, that's well said. Who are a few coaches or mentors, if you have any, who's impacted you the most?
I feel like I've drawn like a lot of what I do and how I approach training from like various different places. Like, I'm really big on like functional sport. Like, I used to love the idea of being strong, but I've also realized that strength and functionality are two different beasts when you look at how you operate day to day. Like, I used to love bodybuilding for the aesthetic. So I would be very much looking at coaches that focus very much on like how to build physique. So Brett Contreras, I used to be really, really into like his glute building. And then once I got past just wanting to go to the gym for aesthetic reasons, I started looking at coaches that were a lot more focused on like functionality and performance, because I didn't just want to like look like I lifted. I wanted to be someone who was like a gun athletically. So
Was that a certain age that you started finding that, or was there a certain turning point that kind of shifted that mentality?
after having kids,
Okay.
yeah, definitely after having kids. Like, when you're a parent or a mum, like, you got like a little sack of potato that you carry.
You have to protect. Yep.
Yeah, and you could carry it around everywhere. And I was like, God, this kid's heavy, or like, I'm carrying a child and 20 shopping bags, or like,
Yep.
that classic, like, I want to be that strong that I only have to make one trip,
One trip.
from the car. Yeah,
Yep.
that was me.
Yeah.
Or like, I'll have all of the bags and I'll be trying to open a door with no hands and using my feet. Like, that's just how stupid I would try to like balance myself. And I was like, I need to be capable of these things. And there was a point there where I was like, I can lift this much weight, or I look this way, but I still don't feel like, well, I've still got all this back pain, or I've still got, I don't know, like I can't do something. And I was like, well,
What's the point?
Yeah, exactly. What's
Yeah.
the point? What's the point in looking the part if you can't play the part? And like, I'm a avid reader and I love like fantasy and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, if I was the main female character in like a book that I loved, what would I have to do? What would I have to do to be like that, to be capable of like bringing down a kingdom, or you know what I mean? Like, what would it be like to be the heroine of my story? So I started looking a lot more at like functional training, and that was sort of when I moved into like martial arts, because I was like, I want my body to do cool things. So I started looking a lot of like, I have like no specific coaches that I like looked at specifically for that, but it was like, I would look at calisthenics videos, and I would obviously follow people who did like Muay Thai training, or so there's a lot of like fighters, I suppose, like in our community that I look up to. One of them is Brooke Farrell. She's a mum too, and she's like an incredible fighter. So a lot of like the way that she talks about moving your body and the mindset of a fighter and that kind of stuff really resonated with me, because it's like, you don't do all these things to like just be ready to fight. Like, it's like you do this because it prepares you to be able to like walk around day to day and do XYZ, or and it's the same with functional training. Like,
Or it goes back to your warrior in the garden analogy.
Yeah, that's right. Like, you deadlift because you have to get up out of a chair. And that's why it's important. Like, I still believe very heavily in like weight training for functionality. Like, if you can't lift your own body weight, I believe that there's a problem. You should be able to like do like 1 or 2 push-ups. You should be able to at least do 1 or 2 pull-ups.
Yep.
If you can bench press 200 kilos and you can't pull your own body weight up to a bar, there is something seriously wrong.
Yep. No, 100% agree with that. What was something you had to unlearn from a coach or a system you once trusted?
Macro tracking.
Yeah.
I use macro tracking with my own clients. And I feel like it has an incredible place for helping people understand energy balance and how much fuel your body actually can take and function well and optimize performance and live daily. But also, obviously, when I did bodybuilding, I did like an 8 month prep. So I didn't do like a 12-week one. I did like an 8 month calorie deficit. I tracked every single scrap of food that I consumed for 8 months. I didn't lick a spoon. I didn't eat a crumb that was not tracked. And it taught me the exact amounts of protein, carbs, and fats in foods, which was amazing. But it also became this obsession that really impeded my day-to-day life. And after I finished bodybuilding, and I think a lot of people who have done competing can probably like attest to this, I had issues with food that I did not have before. And I was some days pushing myself to eat past the point of full just because my macros were telling me that that I had to hit this number. Whereas beforehand, I would have just stopped eating because I wasn't hungry anymore.
Yep.
So I lost touch with my body cues about when I was hungry and when I wasn't hungry, which is really important when you're trying to manage things like weight. And that's one of the biggest things, is because people use food as an emotional crutch. They lose touch with what's real hunger and what's just either looking for a dopamine hit, or they're trying to like numb or suppress something, so they reach for food.
How often do you think people get too wound up in the numbers?
All of the time. I still do. So it's like scale weight. Oh, I'm not the weight that I want to be. My whole day's ruined. Oh, I ate 15 grams over my carbohydrate intake for the day. I'm a failure. What's the point in trying for the rest of the week? So a lot of people, I think, have an all or nothing mentality when it comes to fitness. Just because it hasn't been perfect, it's like, oh, well, I'm just going to like piss it up the wall and I'll start again Monday. Which, if you look at fitness from the lens of it's actually meant to improve your quality of life, not detract from it,
Yep.
I don't think that's beneficial at all. So I had to learn, like I spent probably like a year not tracking macros. I don't even think I owned scales for 6 months of that. I didn't have a pair of scales in my house. And this was after obviously competitively bodybuilding and then having kids and going through that process of like trying to lose weight. I was like 10% body fat that whole time. I maintained that. And I didn't think about when I was hungry or what I had to track or whatever, but I learned how to listen to my body again. And I feel like people rely too much outside of themselves for things that are actually intrinsically built into our physiology to tell us when we need stuff. And people chase comfort too quickly. No one likes feeling hungry. But if you want to lose weight, you have to actually be hungry. Like there is an element of discomfort in that because being hungry is uncomfortable.
What's the definition of being in a calorie deficit?
That's right. Yeah. Deficit.
Yeah.
And no one wants to be okay with that. So it's like they'll play around with numbers to try to like alleviate that, or they'll eat super high volume and then that causes gut issues or whatever. So it's like we look for all these quick fixes to get to the result as quickly as possible versus just being consistent.
And it might work. Some of those methods might work, but it won't be sustainable.
No way. No. It's like being put on like a 1,200 calorie diet.
Yeah.
It's like, it'll work.
For about 2 months and then...
Yeah, but like willpower is like one of those things, and you have like a tank of willpower. And I see this a lot with like people now, especially fighting or like any sport where it's like you've got to restrict for a certain manner of time. And you can do it, but then you drain your willpower. So it's like once all of that willpower is gone, even if you're the most disciplined person in every other aspect, if you've drained all of that willpower you become like a ravenous beast. Like you're not thinking, like it's not a logical thought process you're going through when you're reaching for the food or you're doing the thing. It's like you literally have just restricted for so long, your body is like, enough.
You do the complete opposite.
Even though you know better, and then you fall into that cycle of like shame and guilt, and it just becomes this endless process of like restrict, binge. And this is what happens a lot with like people and food and that kind of stuff.
Yep, definitely. You pretty much answered a lot of those questions off that. That was good. What were you like at your most disconnected, and what brought you back?
That's a deep one. Oh,
Don't have to go, obviously, too much
yeah,
information.
no, that's okay. Physically, I feel like I was training way too much because, like I said, for me, training was a coping mechanism. So it was like the harder I trained, the less I had to think about what was going on. And I think the process of doing that was really, really great initially because I was like, cool, like, look at the results I'm getting for myself. Like, look at how I can still function in life, even though I've got all this other stuff going on. And it was empowering in one way, but also it stopped me from like seeing the areas of growth that I actually should have been focusing on in that sense. So learning how to like balance and like just self question, why am I doing this? Why is this happening? Or why do I feel the need to act this way when I feel like it would be more beneficial for me to do this? I don't know whether that answers your question or not.
Yeah, it kind of along the lines of it, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is
There's
there?
definitely the pros and cons of being that locked in, but then I think it's definitely, to go back to your garden analogy, I think it's nice sometimes to stop and smell the roses to a certain extent and kind of appreciate what you've done, the growth that you've made over the last X amount, whatever the tracking is,
Yeah.
which then kind of can help with that momentum moving forward, or that realign the goals, or, you know,
Yeah,
kind of
absolutely.
help you go forward.
I think people often lose touch of why they're even doing what they're doing. Like, you go to the gym because you want to lose weight. Let's just use that as an example because that's why I think from a female perspective, most girls walk into the gym to lose weight. Most boys walk into the gym because they want to put on size. Like
Pretty general.
we can be general there. And you start doing it, and then you start feeling good about yourself. But then it's like, what's the next thing I need to fix? And then all of a sudden you become this project that there's always something to fix. There's always something to improve, and you stop noticing the journey itself. You're just fixed on the next destination, which I think is a bit metaphorical for life too, because you don't really stop and appreciate how much you've changed or how much you've grown, or
Unless you're forced to with injury or health issue.
yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why so many people, like, you hear a lot of people talk about when they go through these like big life challenges, you know, don't take for granted your health or whatever, because like, you know, without it,
You're nothing.
what else matters?
Yeah, definitely. Was there a turning point where you realised you were meant to lead other women, not just train them?
No, not really. Other than the fact that thinking about helping other women avoid feeling how I felt would literally keep me awake at night. But it wasn't a conscious choice either. Like, I remember when I started my women's challenge through our gym, all I wanted was a group of women to train with that were kind and giving them a safe place to come and enjoy fitness again and to try something different. Because I understand that walking into a gym can be really, really confronting. And sometimes, you know, we've had experiences like bullying and all that kind of thing. So as a female, trusting other females is actually quite difficult because there's all that bitchiness that goes on at high school and school and all that stuff. And when I started the challenge and I had all these women come in, I was like, wow, this is something. Okay. And I watched this community just build in front of my eyes of like all these women who had no idea who they were. They were all from like such different, like, you wouldn't have picked the friendships that like sprung out of that space with the people that were there. And then I just sat back and like was watching all of this unfold. And then they were organizing things outside of the gym to do on the weekends. They were like, and these were girls who like had never done any kind of like martial arts before, for one, but like had been like really far removed from their own fitness journeys.
But they didn't realise they all had something in common.
Yeah, they were looking for something. They were looking for like that connection and that like-minded group of friends that they didn't have before. They were looking for a space where they could feel accepted for who they are, like quirky attitudes and, you know, weird song requests and all. Like, I've had some strange song requests in class, but that challenge, because I had no expectation about how it would go. I was like, if I had 5 people, I'd be stoked. And I had nearly 30. And I was like, I didn't realize how much of a kick out of it I would get. And that kind of like sparked that desire to create more of those kinds of spaces. And over the last like 18 months, I think watching these women go from when they walked in, like not just the weight loss transformations, but like who they thought they were versus who they are now. Some of them I can't even like remember
What they were like
what they
before
were
walked
like.
in.
No, I've got one girl, she's lost over 23 kilos and she walked in the quietest person ever. And now she spars in the fighters class. And
Wow.
this was a girl who literally never had done anything like that before.
Wow.
So I just look at that transformation and go, unreal. There's more than her that's in the fighters class, but like that have gone from that. So I just look at all these women and go, oh, I got.
How does that make you feel?
That's like life changing. That beats any personal achievement that I've ever achieved. And I didn't know that it would, but when it happened, I was like, wow.
Yep.
Like
It's pretty cool.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
Like to see other women, find their own courage and their own bravery.
Yep. That was your purpose, to help them find their purpose.
Yeah.
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 What did you believe about training in your 20s that you now know was completely wrong? Let's just say, I know that you probably got a list, but the top 3.
That more is better. Definitely. I would say that's probably my number one, actually. That's more is better. Yeah. And that comes from obviously the lens of like physical exhaustion, burnout, injury, but also thinking that you have to do more to be more. And that kind of like transitioned over into like how I view life in general. So yeah, definitely in my 20s, I would do as much as possible and probably not even have a bit of a plan too. I was just doing more because I thought more was better. And the second one would definitely be not having a plan. So I just go in and lift stuff.
Yep.
And when I started having a plan, that's when I started seeing results. Mm-hmm. Even if the plan is loose or it's a framework, because actually, no, I got 3. As a woman, training the same way that men do. In my 20s, didn't matter so much because I was young. Whereas as I think you hit your 30s, especially as a woman, your hormones change, things change. So everything becomes a lot more noticeable. And a lot of women experience things like autoimmune diseases and exhaustion in different ways than what men do. And they're given plans that do not cater for hormonal fluctuation. Men are a 24-hour hormone cycle, women are a 28-day hormone cycle or thereabouts. So what you're physically capable of at certain stages of that hormone cycle is not the same week to week. So learning about like my physiology as a female has been like a game changer for how I like manage things like stress and fatigue within my body to reduce injury.
Why do you think so many women still follow programs built around male physiology? Do you think it's lack of education or?
Absolutely, because 99% of the data out there is based on a male control group. Mm-hmm. There's a really good professor, her name's Dr. Stacey Sims, and she recently did a podcast with Mel Robbins around like female physiology and all that kind of stuff. Like you've got like the fads around like fasting, and don't get me wrong, I like fasting for different reasons, but she talks a lot about like the physiology of females and how, because our bodies have a higher propensity to create cortisol and our stress response threshold is different to a man's, the same kind of stimulus and output that creates the right kind of stress in a man's body to actually get positive results is significantly different.
So different. Yep.
In women's. Like a freezing cold ice bath at 4 degrees for a man stimulates a positive response, whereas in a female it actually pushes the cortisol too far in the wrong direction, whereas we are more likely to need something around like 16 degrees to get that same positive benefit. So learning like stuff like that and understanding that why sometimes I would feel inferior physically because of my gender and get frustrated about it. And then having this, because I always felt this need to be like, I'm just as strong as a boy. I can do just as much as a man can do. And feeling frustrated and not understanding why there was certain reasons why I couldn't do what they could do in different ways, and then understanding what my strengths as a female were and how I could train to maximize those strengths.
So it's very easy to fall into that hamster wheel of training harder to try and get better, to beat that standard, burning out, and then starting again. And it's just over and over again.
Yeah, that's right. And I think because, girls do get a little bit of slack in the fitness area around like what they're capable of versus a male, and it's getting a lot better now because we've seen such a rise in like female athletes and like seeing what females are actually capable of doing in the athletic arena. But there's still that whole girls aren't as good as boys rhetoric, I think, that still circulates out there somewhere. And understanding how to train in a way that supports your physiology versus going against it capitalizes on the results that you get versus diminishing them. And I think a lot of women could benefit from understanding how that happens. And it doesn't mean you do like big changes in your program week to week, but it's just understanding what's going on within your body and educating yourself around like how your hormones change and what that means mood-wise, what that means strength-wise. Like in your luteal phase, you cannot lift the same as what you could in your like follicular or your ovulation phase, because your hormones change, which changes the elasticity in your muscles, which means that your limbs and your ligaments aren't as stable. So lifting really, really heavy at certain points, it's actually dangerous.
So what are 2 or 3 things every woman in their 30s should change in their training approach? I think you're starting to kind of touch on a few of things there.
Yeah.
But if you want to go a little bit deeper, definitely go for it.
Yeah. So I think number one is right before you get your period, you shouldn't be focusing on anything that's like crazy high intensity. So having permission to actually slow down a little bit, focus on technique, focus on, lifting with intention, activating your muscles, things that are more like activating and like feeling muscle contractions, much more beneficial like during that phase. When you're in that follicular, like ovulation phase, up the intensity, because that's when you naturally have more energy. So like capitalize on that. So it's just like structuring certain shifts and ebbs and flows in like what you do in order to maintain that. Because if you're pushing so hard and like you're burning yourself out doing like high intensity training when your body is screaming at you
To rest.
You end up doing more like you can push through, absolutely, but then you're wondering why you're burning out every like 2 to 3 months, needing like a month off the gym or 2 weeks off the gym because you're like so exhausted.
Catches up.
Yeah, it catches up with you. That's right.
Was there anything else you wanted to add on top of that?
I think also, this is smashed in social media and classic fitness talk, but protein.
Yep.
Like if you didn't track anything and you tracked your protein, you would be surprised at, like, even now, it actually still blows my mind when I get new clients that come in for me to do their nutrition, and I tell them to like give me a food diary. I'll get them to do like a food diary to get like an idea of like what they're currently eating, so I can get an understanding of like why they currently are experiencing what they're experiencing. And some women are like eating like 50 grams of protein a day. And that just blows my mind.
Why do you think they think that that less is better?
I don't even think they think less is better. I just think it's the lack of awareness around. And again, I think sometimes because when you're in a certain industry, you forget that not everyone else is exposed to the same things. Very easy to just sort of have those blinders on. It's lack of awareness around what's in foods. So it's like like eggs, for example. Let's use eggs as a good example. Most people think that 2 eggs for breakfast is a good amount of protein. 1 egg has like 5 or 6 grams of protein. So 2 eggs for breakfast is 12 grams of protein. It's hardly anything, especially when I'm a firm believer in the fact that most women should be having between 2 to 2.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight to help with like muscle maintenance and growth.
Which is pretty bang on to what a guy is recommended, I think.
Thereabouts, yeah, I reckon. I mean, and that's always been like my approach. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of data and statistical information that would say that like there's like 1.6 to 2.2, I think is like the variation that they use a lot when they're trying to prescribe things for certain like aspects. But most women, their primary goal is to lose weight. So I always believe that you should have an upper end of that for protein intake. And if you were looking at even a really light human who's like 55 kilos, which is tiny, that's 110 grams of protein a day. And that's if you're having 12 grams of protein for breakfast.
And then your next meal probably isn't until like, say, 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock.
And you're having like, you know, what's the average, even if you're using like one of those like My Muscle Chef meals, the average amount of protein in those is 25 to 30 grams, if that. And then you have like, I don't know, GYG for dinner or whatever. It's like, again, 25 grams if you're lucky. So it's like...
Not even close to the minimum.
No, not at all.
No. Yeah, you've nailed some of these questions, eh? I did not send these to Jade, by the way. So let's talk a little bit about burnout. Why do high-performing women tend to burn out more quietly?
I feel like inbuilt into women is this sense of martyrdom. And we believe that our job, because, you know, physiologically our job is to be nurturers and caretakers. And that often will come at the detriment of yourself. So you will quietly ignore your needs to make sure that everyone around you is taken care of, whether it be in the workplace, whether it be your immediate family. And burnout creeps up on you. So it starts off just like, oh, I'm tired today. I'll get to bed early, and then something pops up and you don't. And then all of a sudden it's 2 weeks of late nights, early mornings to get all of the things done. And I can obviously speak to this through the lens of being a mum. It's really, really easy for self-care. And I don't mean like bubble baths and face masks and stuff like that. It's really easy for those things that actually fill your cup back up to be put on the back burner. And all of a sudden you're snapping at people, you're resentful every time someone asks you to do something for them, because somewhere along the line you've stopped giving any time and attention to anything that you need to like make yourself feel even just like remotely human. And your tolerance to being needed, your tolerance to dealing with stress, your tolerance to dealing with discomfort or anything like that, it's just gone.
What are signs someone is addicted to progress?
You're always looking for the next thing. And I think that I've been very guilty of this. So it's like you are always looking at yourself as like this project, and you only feel good about yourself if you are achieving something or there is some like outcome attached to whatever it is that you do. So whether it be like in the gym, you constantly are trying to like get stronger or fitter or like, but that's always should be the goal. But sometimes there is merit in just maintenance and being okay with what you do being for the sake of like your just overall well-being, not constantly being like, okay, what do I need to do to get better at this? Or how can I be better here? Or what do I need to do more of? Constantly chasing the concept of more.
More is better.
Yeah, more, like more. Like, why do you need more? Like, what is it about needing more that is giving you something that you can't find already?
So how would you connect burnout and identity together?
Most women that I deal with are addicted to producing and being productive because their worth has been attached to productivity. And that stems from childhood, how you receive love and affection and validation as a child. If you were always praised for doing well at school, if you were always praised for being helpful, if you were always praised for like thinking of other people, or you were given extra attention for doing things for other people or whatever, your brain then starts associating those things with how you receive validation and love. So you then look, as you get older, you're looking for that connection and that validation and that praise in almost everything that you do, because
For being a pleaser.
that's
Yeah.
exactly, you become a people pleaser, and you become addicted to this process of achieving, because achieving makes you feel good, or you get praise, or you get that connection, because that's what we're wired for. We're wired for connection. We're wired for receiving love however we can get it. So when you learn from an early age that you get love from being productive, what are you constantly going to do? Be productive. And a lot of women struggle with this concept of rest, like feeling like they have to earn it. So sitting down for 10 minutes just to like catch a breath. And that's why I think a lot of, you look at relationships, a lot of women get really frustrated at men who can just sit down and watch TV for an hour, just completely mindlessly, while the woman's racing around the house trying to like clean everything up. And that miscommunication of like her nervous system feeling super uncomfortable to do what he's doing. She's not actually mad at him about sitting down watching TV. She's unconsciously resentful at the fact that he can just switch off and watch TV. But it's triggering her sense of like her lack of safety around being able to rest, because she feels like she has to earn it by doing all the housework, then she can sit down. And when you're constantly in that state of feeling like you have to earn something that is inherently a basic human need, of course you're going to burn out, because how much do you have to do to earn 10 minutes of sitting down? And that's relative to the person. But
that's very true. We're going to clip that one. That's that's a good one. So touching on boundaries, identity, and self-respect, what's a moment you realised your identity was no longer serving you?
When I started realising that my growth as a person was hindering relationships, I suppose. I say hindering like lightly. When you outgrow scenarios and situations of people, and people treat you as the version of you were when you first
Met them
or whatever, and you, in the lens of like relationship, you're with someone, and then all of a sudden they're still like 10 years down the track and they're still treating you like you were when you first met them. It's like you're not the same person. So realizing that growth in your identity and how it changes, if your environment doesn't reflect that, it's very, very hard to keep growing. And that's why I think having like environment audits, people audits, relationship audits is actually a really crucial part of growth. And a lot of people struggle with that. And that's why we get stuck, because we're like, oh, but I'll lose this person, or I'll lose these people in my life. And that's why I don't want to grow, or like, because we fear losing that love and that connection. So we get stuck in places instead of realizing that it's actually okay for us to outgrow this place and move into another one. But it's hard when you're constantly surrounded by people who remind you and treat you like you were, at 20,
10 years
25,
ago.
Yeah,
definitely.
So being able to recognize that identity growth has to include the growth of your surroundings too. And I struggled with that a lot, because obviously I had a little bit of a people pleaser complex back in the day, and letting people down was really, really hard. And being the villain in anyone else's story was really, really challenging. And, the first time that I spoke up and did something about that, my whole life came crashing down. So it was just this like big wake up call to be like, wow, becoming the person that you say you want to be actually does really cost you your old life. So it's like a cliche saying, but yeah, the growth of who you are capable of being definitely is indicative of you being okay and letting other aspects of yourself go.
Why is boundary setting so difficult for women, especially in transformation spaces?
Because we want to be loved. We want to be accepted. So having a boundary is like, especially if you haven't had boundaries before, which most of us haven't, because we want to be helpful. We want to be connected. We want to be able to be that person that people love and want to be around. So if you've previously been someone who says yes when they really want to say no, and people are used to that version of you, and then all of a sudden you say no, their reaction is going to be kind of like, oh, what's wrong with her? And it's like, oh, there's nothing wrong.
They then think you're the problem, or there's a problem with you.
That's right. So it's like when we enter into, like, friendships, partnerships, business, relationship, whatever, it's almost like there's this unwritten contract. This is how you act, this is how I act, and this is how we interact. And if you're boundaryless, you're just the one that does everything. So it's like, friends where you're always the one that reaches out. And then all of a sudden you get to this point where you're like, you know what, this feels like a really one-sided exchange here. And I'm really exhausted by that. So I'm going to not. And then all of a sudden you're the problem. So when you start enforcing boundaries with people, especially as a woman, it can feel like this massive threat to your safety and your sense of like community and belonging, because you get painted as the problem, or you're like out of line, or you're going against what everyone thinks you should be doing or how you should be acting. So it's a real trigger to that. And for women especially, a sense of safety is huge, because predominantly we are I hate saying these words out loud, but we're the weaker sex, so to speak. So it's like, for us, that sense of like safety is really, really important, whether we want to admit it or not. So walking down the street, you need to have like a sense of like internal safety to feel safe walking down the street. Like I know girls who hate walking by themselves just to go for a walk because they don't feel safe. So when you put a boundary in place that challenges your sense of safety, you are literally going against a basic need that you have as a human being to feel safe. So it becomes really, really hard, especially if it's people that are close to you, parents, family, like loved ones. Like those people are usually the hardest to put boundaries in place with. So yeah.
So that's what they've been used to, like so early on. Or,
Yeah, but I also look at boundaries as like, that's your handbook for teaching other people how to treat you. If you have boundaries in place and you have a sense of self-respect, the way that you treat yourself is how you teach other people to treat you. Like if you don't tolerate poor behavior from yourself, you're teaching other people that you don't tolerate poor behavior. So it's like, you meet my standard or don't come into my space.
Going a little bit off, still on topic, but just had a thought. So with the coaching side of things, obviously that, to me, that's the traits of what makes a good coach, and maybe not so much. And, there's a conversation that we had on here a couple of weeks ago where should the PT, from a fitness point of view, should the PT look like they should be a PT?
Okay. Again, I feel like this is super nuanced, because I do believe that there is a standard that you should hold yourself to if you are willing to be in a place where you're telling people to do things. And I am a firm believer in, I don't ask people to do something that I am not willing to do myself. Does that mean I need to look like I'm a fighter 24/7 or like shredded, ready to get into the ring? No. But should I be maintaining a base level of like fitness and taking care of my body, eating well and for performance and all those kinds of things? I believe so. Like there is a difference between peak performance state, like we mentioned before, and maintenance. But if you are someone who is yo-yoing from like, 10% body fat, or like, just super, super lean, to overweight because you're binge eating.
As a coach or a client?
As a coach.
Okay.
I feel like there's a part of that there's a lack of integrity there. And that's not to say that doesn't happen, because we all have our own struggles and all that kind of stuff. But if you're not actively like working on like that kind of thing, and you can be like in process, like you can still be someone who can teach people things and be in the process of like working things out for yourself. I do 100% believe that. But when it comes to the point where you're trying to teach people something, I do believe it's something that you should have experienced or should be holding a certain standard for. yourself.
I guess you don't really want to cross that line of being a hypocrite.
No, that's right. Yeah. And I just like, I look at myself right now. Am I like the leanest I've ever been? No. Do I still train every day? Yes. Do I still make sure that I like eat well? Yes. Is my season in life about being the fittest and strongest I can possibly be? Not right now. But I still have like a level and a standard that I make sure that I am focused on, which is what my expectation would be of like clients that come to me who are looking for lifestyle transformations. If I'm saying you should be training 3 to 4 times a week and focusing on eating food that like nourishes your body and maybe minimizing takeout, and I'm eating McDonald's 5 times a week.
That's a definition of one of those online coaches that...
Yeah, they promote one thing, but they're actually doing
actually doing
something
that.
completely different.
Yeah.
Which is why I think my approach with like, especially with nutrition, is very different client to client. Like I know a lot of coaches have like one method that they work with people about. And like when I did my nutrition qualification, it was like, this is like the best method. Like obviously like macro tracking and then all that kind of stuff. But then like when you're working with performance athletes, you're working off like an energy expenditure ratio, because you can't just like tailor macros to them when their energy expenditure is so different day to day based on training.
It has to be case by case.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. And then, you know, I've worked with a lot of women who are like perimenopausal and they've got issues with insulin resistance and all that kind of stuff. So I don't personally eat keto. However, my understanding of nutrition and like the research and like the qualifications that I got to help me understand how the body works and how nutrition supports people at different phases is an approach where a lower carbohydrate approach is better for that client. Yeah. Does that mean I have to be eating that way myself? No. So it's understanding what works best for the person that you're trying to help, but also understanding like the parameters of like what standard you're trying to uphold as like your integrity states.
I just wish some people were just a little bit more patient with that process as well. Like it's pretty rare that you will nail that nutrition program straight away, or even that training program straight away. So I think people need to be a little bit more patient with those sort of things, and especially around the nutrition side of things. Like, because obviously, you know, from a male's point of view, like compared to the women's, like the level of nutrition needed on a day-to-day basis is completely different. And it can be completely different, say, on a Monday compared to a Sunday, you know.
Absolutely, so. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And I think people being okay with learning to trial and error with approaches that work, because we're all so different. And I did a post on this ages ago about like, you know, if we have individual macros for individual people, why do we not like have individual like training plans? So I think it's that same concept. It's like, just because X client needs like their protein, carb and fat, and it's like good to be the same and they're having like great results doing that, doesn't mean that client Y is going to have the same results based on that. Like I've had clients that I have not had to change one thing of their macros for like 3 months and they will have steady weight drops the whole time. I've had clients that have had to like increase, decrease to keep up with like what life is happening to them. Like if they're going away or if they've got like a really sedentary job or all of a sudden this happens. So it's like being nimble and responsive to like what's going on and understanding that there's just absolutely no such thing as a one size fits all. There's frameworks that we operate within that give us guidance, but also like absolutely being okay with trial and error.
Yeah, and also being patient.
Yes,
with
being
the process,
patient. Yeah, that's right. Because consistency, like everything is consistency. Learning is consistency. Executing is consistency.
Yep.
Perfecting is consistency.
And how boring would it be if you just got it right the first time?
Absolutely. But
so fucking boring.
You look at like the people who are good, like nailing it in business, nailing it in, you know, their relationship, nailing it in their job, nailing it in the gym. Like they just got really good at being consistent, doing the really boring things. And being good at stuff is actually just repetition of the boringest things.
Definitely.
And people now, we're so used to like this instant like gratification, like what's the quickest way I can get from here to here, that we think that the fundamentals are beyond us. Like Is it beyond me to track my macros for 12 weeks and be really consistent and eat in a calorie deficit and potentially lose 500 grams a week? Nah, there's got to be a quicker way to do it.
Yeah.
Well, there might be, but how are you like short circuiting your growth as a person there and building your resilience to be able to stick to something? Because when you stick to something, you build self-trust. If you're constantly unable to stick to something and you start and stop and give up, your brain just stops trusting itself. Like you don't trust yourself to follow through.
Yeah.
So nothing you ever do, whether it be fitness, whether it be studying, whether it be whatever, you don't have any concept or evidence that you've built for yourself that you can follow through. So it's like how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Definitely. Yeah, which kind of stems back to when you were 14, you signed up to the gym and you started working hard, and then everything else, the scene of everything else of life just got instantly better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What's one boundary that changed your life?
When I stopped accepting like discounted energy from other people. I used to be the person that responded instantly. I would always check in on friends, and I would always make sure that people knew that I was there if they needed me. And when I went through this phase of needing other people, not knowing how to ask, but needing other people, and I stopped being the one to reach out, I was like, well, all of that was pretty like uneven. And then I was like, you know what? All of that energy that I'm giving so freely to everyone else, I'm going to bring that back to me. And when I started really focusing and having that boundary with, you know what, I will respond when I'm ready. Because, you know, for me, I felt anxious if I didn't respond to people, like they would get mad at me. And then if someone didn't respond straight away to me, I made this big story about, oh, I'm not that important, they don't care about me or whatever. So it's like, it became this like loop of like, my lack of boundaries created stories about other people who had boundaries perhaps. So it became in my best interest to have those boundaries with like when I was actually ready to respond to people, not inconvenience myself to get back to people because I was worried they'd get cranky at me. Not be available for people all the time, even if it was at the detriment of myself, like putting myself out or exhausting myself, staying up late at night to go see someone if they needed it. When I was like, no, sorry, I don't want to do that. No, sorry, can't
Start
get back.
putting yourself first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think that enough people know how to be selfish in a productive way.
What advice would you give your 30-year-old self about self-respect?
I think I said this before. If you don't respect yourself, why would anyone else respect you? Like, we all want people to treat us with respect, but if you aren't willing to give yourself that respect first, what standard do other people have?
Just set for other people.
Yeah, that's right. Like, if you treat yourself like shit, expect to be treated like shit.
Yeah, it's very true. We'll finish off with a couple of rapid fire fun and fitness questions. So just go with first thing that comes to your mind. Favorite treat meal?
Hot chips. If I could eat hot chips and not put on weight, oh my God.
Unreal. Salt?
Oh, chicken salt, for sure.
Sauce?
Tomato.
Tomato? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Favorite body part to train?
Shoulders.
Okay. Least favorite, but you still do it?
Oh, legs.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
It's because of my back. Like, it hurts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Go to pump up song?
At the moment, again, this is showing the nerd in me. It's a song written about a character in a book. It's called Fireheart, and it's about the character I found it on TikTok, on like Book Talk, whatever it's called, and yeah, I listen to it and it makes me feel like I'm a epic assassin saving a kingdom.
So for all you nerds out there,
anyone who loves Throne of Glass, yeah.
Best pre-workout food?
Probably just like a banana. I train early in the morning, so often I don't actually like have a great deal of food before that. But yeah, mostly I'll just grab a banana.
One supplement you can't go without, if any?
Pre-workout.
Really?
Yeah.
High caffeine or small caffeine? Or?
I'm like midway. I don't like the ones that literally make me feel like I've actually had some really bad experiences with pre-workouts where I've like had them and then I've been like skitzing out and vomiting afterwards because of how much caffeine's in them. So
Okay.
yeah, I like the tingles with the beta alanine, and that makes me feel like have like a bit of a thermogenic effect.
Yeah.
Get me
Like
sweaty.
kind of just getting there, but
Yeah, like because obviously most gyms are really air-conned and stuff like that. So
yeah.
I like to feel like I'm sweating a little bit, but
Yeah. Not
Yeah.
to the point where you feel like you're on LSD.
yes.
One gym rule everyone should follow.
Just be nice, like smile. And I'm so guilty of not doing this, but just like smile at people.
Talk about being a hypocrite.
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm learning this.
Okay.
But yeah, smile because it makes people feel uncomfortable. Not makes people feel uncomfortable. Makes people feel comfortable.
Yep.
And I feel like, if you can learn to.
I mean, it might make people feel uncomfortable for you to
Yeah.
just walk around smiling.
Yeah, you're very right. But like if you meet someone's gaze, like don't be awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sort of smirk.
Yeah, I feel like it's really easy for like that awkward eye contact in the gym to become awkward if everyone's like,
Yeah.
if you just be like, I see you trying to do you. Good job.
Good on you.
Yeah.
Most annoying thing people do in the gym.
Trying to think of something that annoys me the most. I reckon in the free weight section, having their stuff on a bench and not using it. Can't believe the amount of times that I've gone to use
So
it.
if someone's like using a bench and doing bicep curls with a bar or something,
And they're not
standing
even,
up.
they're not even using it. They're just using it for their shit.
Yeah.
You're like, get your stuff
There's
off.
a fucking locker over there for a reason.
Yeah, like just put it on the ground.
A quote or saying that stuck with you.
I have two, and it'll choose your hard. Being fat and unhealthy is hard. Being fit and healthy is hard. You choose whichever one resonates the most with you. Like, yeah, I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, definitely.
And the second one, this is a really good one for anyone who's like a parent. The biggest burden on a child is the unlived life of their parent. So I think for mums, it's really easy to feel like you have to self-sacrifice everything for your children. Where in actual fact, when you sacrifice who you are and what makes you happy as a person, it's actually a burden on your children because you're not the happiest version of yourself. And the happiest version of yourself is the one that's able to give love and affection easily, whereas the version of you that's resentful, stressed out, tired, exhausted, feeling awful about themselves, you're not your best version. So, yeah.
That's what I said. One thing people misunderstand about you.
Most people think that I'm a mega bitch. And like the comment I get the most from people is, oh, I thought you were really scary, or I thought you were like really bitchy. And it's like, I actually probably have a really solid resting bitch face. But yeah, I'm just a marshmallow.
What's something you're most proud of?
I actually feel like what I am most proud of myself is my growth as a person, because I never used to have a lot of like confidence in myself, and a lot of people might not have even realized that about me. Whereas now I actually believe that things are possible. Like I have like hope and belief in myself, whereas before I didn't. Like I did things and I tried things and all of that kind of stuff, but no matter what I did, no matter how well I did at it, I still didn't think that it was good enough, or I couldn't see any like positive outcome of like what I'd achieved. Whereas now I can look at things and go,
You can now look back and appreciate.
yeah, and I can be like, oh yeah, I actually did good at that. Oh yeah, I feel good, and I can actually like verbalize it. Whereas before I couldn't even verbalize. I remember someone saying, can you just say that you did well? And I couldn't even say the words that I'd done a good job. Whereas now I can at least be like it's still something that's a work in progress, but I can just still be like, oh yeah.
Your beach pros, I think it's such a, I mean, being general again, but I think that's a massive trait for a lot of high performers.
And I think it serves you well in some aspects because
It means get better.
yeah, you are never resting on your laurels. But I think especially now in the sport that I'm in, everyone's seen like UFC fighters and how arrogant, fighters and all that kind of stuff act like. There's actually a part of you that needs to have that belief, because if you get in the ring and you don't think that you can win, you've already lost. So it's like I've had to really build that within myself, or at least I've got to believe the person who's like my coach. I've had to believe that he believes I can win. And even that was hard, to believe that anyone would believe that I was good enough to win something. So
you just have to have like that metaphorical switch where you can just switch it on when you need to and then switch it off when you don't.
Yeah.
And finally, what's one piece of advice you'd give to someone listening to this right now that's nodding along relating to what we spoke about today?
You're worth the effort. Like, even as hard as some things feel, or as painstakingly long as whatever, like a fitness journey feels, or going to the gym or getting results, like, you're worth that effort from yourself.
So this is my quote of the week. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you'll call it fate, said by Carl Jung. We often believe we're making conscious choices, choosing our relationships, our patterns, our goals, but more often than not, we're being driven by what we haven't seen in ourselves yet. When the unconscious remains hidden, life can feel like a loop, attracting the same experiences, hitting the same walls, asking, why does this keep happening to me? We bring light to what's being running the show from the background, and once we see it clearly, we're no longer slaves to it. Awareness doesn't just set you free, it gives you the power to write a different ending. So with that, thank you, Jade, for sitting down today. If people want to follow your journey or need some training or coaching, how can they find you?
Instagram's probably the easiest way. I'm the most responsive in there. It's at Wolf and Woman with 2 N's.
Wolf and Woman? Mm-hmm. Okay. I'll chuck it up on the text anyway. If you found value in today's episode, the best way to support the show is by hitting subscribe. It helps me stay motivated knowing this content is providing value for you, and this keeps the episodes coming. You can follow along on Spotify, Instagram, and Facebook at Coach's Corner Podcast, and on YouTube, it's under Sam Eames Fitness. Thanks again, Jade, for being here, and thank you to anyone that listens. I appreciate your time, your attention, and your support. Catch you in the next episode of Coach's Corner.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, guys.